The alien market was loud and cruel. Buyers shouted prices, sellers pushed their products, and the smell of oil, sweat, and dust filled the air. Cages lined the paths, filled with strange beings from different planets. Some were strong, some were beautiful, but all had one thing in common. They were for sale. At the very end of the market, where the shadows grew longer and colder, a girl lay on the dirty floor. No cage protected her. No sign listed her name. She was thin, sick, and barely breathing. Her skin was pale blue, her arms like sticks, her eyes closed. The aliens passing by didn't even stop to look. "She's not worth feeding," one merchant laughed. "She'll die before morning," said another, shaking his head. "She's too sick to save," a third one muttered, throwing a cloth over her like trash. But not everyone laughed. Among the crowd walked a human man. He wore a long coat and a hood that covered half his face. He moved silently, not looking at the cages. His eyes scanned the area slowly, searching for something, or maybe someone. When he reached the girl, he stopped. He knelt beside her and touched her neck, feeling for a pulse. It was there, but weak, like a whisper. She was still alive. The merchant noticed him and scoffed. "You want that?" he asked, almost choking on his own laughter. "I'll give her for 1 coin, just to get rid of her." "Waste of money, if you ask me," someone added. The crowd chuckled, but the man didn't speak. He reached into his coat, took out a silver coin, and dropped it in the merchant's hand. Then, without a word, he lifted the girl gently. Her body hung limp in his arms, her head resting on his shoulder. The crowd stared in silence as he walked away, carrying her like something precious. Inside a quiet hovercraft parked just outside the market, he laid her on a soft seat. The machine hummed to life and rose into the air. He pressed a few buttons on the control panel, then turned back to her. Her breathing was shallow, her skin cold. He took out a small medical device from his bag. It scanned her body and showed her condition: organ failure, extreme malnutrition, fever, old injuries. She didn't have much time left. The man opened a small box under the seat and took out a silver vial. He connected it to a needle and gently injected the medicine into her arm. He whispered softly, "Hang on." The girl didn't reply, but her breathing slowed a little. Her face relaxed slightly. She opened her eyes just for a second. Blurred vision, dim lights. A warm touch on her hand. Then everything faded again. Hours passed, and the hovercraft landed near a quiet cabin deep in a forest of tall red trees. The man carried her inside, laid her on a clean bed, and placed a warm blanket over her. He turned on heaters, checked her vitals again, and began mixing a liquid food paste for her. Every movement was slow and gentle, like he had done this many times before. That night, he sat beside her, watching her sleep. He didn't know her name, where she came from, or why she had been thrown away like garbage. But something in her eyes when they opened for that brief second had spoken to him. She wasn't just sick, she was broken, hurt, forgotten, but not useless. He leaned closer and said quietly, "You'll be safe now." And for the first time in many years, the girl was not alone. Outside, the stars blinked in the sky. The market behind them was already busy again. New voices, new sales, new pain, but far from it all. In a small cabin under the red trees, a life once abandoned had just begun to heal. She woke up slowly. Her body felt heavy, like it was filled with stones. Her eyes opened, blinking at the soft light above her. It was not harsh, not like the market, not like the cages. This light was warm, gentle, almost kind. She tried to move but winced. Her limbs still ached, and every breath burned a little. But there was something strange. There was no cold floor beneath her, no chains on her wrists. She was lying on a bed, a real bed, covered in soft blankets. Her hand moved weakly, fingers brushing against a pillow. She looked around the room with slow, careful glances. Wooden walls, a small window, shelves with strange tools and books, and near the doorway, sitting in a chair, was the man, the human. He wasn't looking at her. He was writing something on a screen, focused, calm. Then he looked up, and their eyes met. For a second, she flinched, expecting pain, commands, or worse. But he only smiled a little and stood. "You're awake," he said, walking over to her side. She didn't speak. Her throat was too dry. He picked up a small glass and helped her drink slowly. The water was cool, clean, and tasted like nothing she had ever known. "You're safe here," he said softly. "No one will hurt you." She looked at him, confused, afraid. "Why?" She managed to whisper, her voice like dry leaves. "Why did you take me?" He paused for a moment, then sat beside her. "Because they left you to die," he said, "and I don't leave people behind." She didn't understand. No one had ever spoken like that before. Not to her, not to someone like her, sick, weak, unwanted. He stood again and moved toward the corner of the room. There, a small machine beeped quietly. Scanning her vitals, he adjusted some settings and turned back. "You're getting better," he said. "The medicine is working." Slowly, she tried to speak again, her voice cracking. What do you want from me?" The man looked surprised by the question. "Nothing," he said simply. "You don't owe me anything." That made no sense. Everyone wanted something. Buyers wanted servants, guards, toys, or tools, but this man only brought her to a quiet cabin and gave her blankets. He left the room for a while, and she closed her eyes. Memories came, painful ones. The auction, the cold floor, the laughter of merchants, being kicked, starved, forgotten. Then, the silver coin, the warm hands, the voice that said, "Hang on," when the man returned. He brought food. It was a soft paste, warm and easy to swallow. He fed her slowly, with patience, wiping her mouth gently when she coughed. No anger, no rush, only care. After the meal, she leaned back on the pillow, breathing softly. "What is your name?" she asked, her voice still weak. He looked at her and smiled, just a little. "Call me Joran," he said. "And you?" She hesitated. "No name," she whispered. "I was just a number. 73C. He frowned and shook his head. "That's not a name," he said. "You deserve better than that." That night, Joran stayed close. He didn't sleep much, always checking her temperature, her breathing, her comfort. She watched him with half-closed eyes, trying to understand him. Why would a human risk his time, his money, even his life for her? The next morning, she woke up to birds chirping outside. She turned her head toward the window. The trees outside were tall and red, leaves dancing in the breeze. It was beautiful, something she had never seen before. Joran entered the room again, holding a small pot. "Hot tea," he said. "Good for your throat." She drank it slowly, feeling warmth travel down her chest. He sat near her again, this time with a small device. It showed images of stars, planets, cities, ships. He spoke softly, teaching her names of places, histories, languages. She listened, trying to remember. Her mind had been broken for so long, but now it felt alive. That evening, she looked at him and asked, "Why do you live out here, away from everyone?" Joran paused, then said, "I was a soldier once, fought in wars, saw too much, lost too many. Now I live where no one can find me." She nodded slowly. "I know how that feels," she whispered. They said nothing for a while, just sat in silence. Then she said, "You gave me a place to live. But more than that, you gave me something I forgot." Joran tilted his head, curious. "What's that?" She looked at him with tired but grateful eyes. "Hope." And outside, under the red trees and fading stars, hope took its first breath again. The days passed slowly. The girl, once close to death, now sat up in bed on her own. Her bones still ached, and her body was weak, but her spirit no longer felt empty. Every sunrise brought a little more strength, a little more peace. Joran stayed by her side, always quiet, but always near. He didn't ask too many questions, didn't force her to talk. He let her heal, not just her body but her heart. He spoke only when needed, and listened even more, and for the first time, she didn't feel like someone's property. One morning, she tried to stand, her legs trembled, and she almost fell, but Joran caught her before she hit the floor. He didn't laugh or scold her, he just said, "It's okay, we'll try again," and they did every day. He built her a support rail using old metal rods and clamps. He taught her to take small steps, slow and careful. Each time she moved a little farther, he gave her a proud nod. She began to smile again, even if just a little. When she asked why he helped her so much, He simply said, "Because no one helped me when I needed it." She wanted to know more, but didn't press him. Some wounds, she understood, were buried too deep for words. As her strength returned, she explored the cabin. It was small but full of wonders, strange. Devices lined the shelves, half machines, half plants. A glowing crystal powered the lights, and metal birds flew overhead, responding to Joran's voice. In one corner, she found a small greenhouse filled with alien herbs, medicine. Joran explained, "Some of them are rare, illegal to grow in some systems, but out here no one watches." She looked at him, surprised. "You're not afraid of the law?" He smiled, not cruelly, but sadly. "The law wasn't afraid of me either. Back when I fought their wars, that night, as rain fell on the roof." Joran brought out an old music box. He turned the dial, and soft notes filled the room. She listened, her eyes wide, her lips trembling. She had never heard music before, not real music, not something made for joy. Her tears surprised her, but Joran said nothing. He only sat beside her and let the music play. Later, she asked him if he had family. He looked at the fire for a long time before answering. "Not anymore. I'm sorry," she said quietly. He looked at her, his eyes gentle. "You're not the only one who lost everything." That night, when she slept, she dreamed, not of cages or chains, not of pain or shouting. She dreamed of walking through the forest, strong and free, with Joran beside her. The next morning, something strange happened. As she touched the window, the glass flickered, like it was reacting to her fingers. A soft light flowed from her hand into the wall. The cabin's machines hummed louder, almost like they had sensed her. She pulled her hand back in shock. "What was that?" she whispered. Joran had seen it too. He stared at her, then quickly pulled out his scanner. He moved it around her body, watching the readings jump and shift. "This isn't normal," he muttered. "Your energy levels are rising, but we're dying." "How?" She looked down at her hands, shaking her head. "I don't know." Joran checked the old files in his database, comparing her DNA to known records. What he found made his blood run cold. Her genes didn't match any common species, not even rare hybrids. She wasn't just an alien girl with a sickness. She was something forgotten. He didn't tell her everything, not yet. But inside, a storm had started. Later that day, while she rested, Joran walked outside. He activated a cloaked sensor tower and sent out a message coded, encrypted, untraceable. He needed answers, and fast. Back inside, the girl stood again, this time without help. Her steps were slow, but steady. She walked to the mirror and looked at herself for the first time in years. Her face was still thin, her eyes still tired. But behind that, something else was there. She wasn't a number anymore. She was a person again. When Joran returned, he found her standing by the window. The wind blew through her hair, and for the first time, she smiled without fear. "You're learning fast," he said with a grin. She looked back at him and nodded. "I want to be strong," she said, "like you." He stepped closer and placed a hand on her shoulder. "You already are." But outside the trees, something moved in the darkness, a silent eye watching, waiting. Someone had noticed the girl who wasn't supposed to live, and they were coming. The girl stood under the red sky. A soft breeze brushed her face and leaves danced around her feet. She no longer needed Joran's help to walk. Her body had grown stronger, her steps more sure, but her dreams, they were changing. Every night, she saw flashes, machines, needles, faces behind glass. Voices spoke in a language she didn't recognize. Sometimes she woke up sweating, shaking, afraid. But Joran was always there, sitting by the door or near the window, silent, watchful, never far. One morning, her skin began to glow faintly, not bright, just a soft shimmer under her hands. It happened when she felt something, fear, anger, or even happiness. She ran to Joran, breathless, holding out her hands. "It's happening again," she said. "The light." Joran led her to the medbay corner of the cabin. He ran full scans, deeper than before. As the results came in, his eyes narrowed. His fingers moved faster across the screen. He didn't speak right away, but she knew something was wrong, or maybe it is strange to explain. "Your cells are rewriting themselves," he said at last. Some kind of dormant program inside you is waking up. Like a buried code, something old. She didn't understand. What does that mean? She asked. Joran turned the screen toward her. It means you were made for something, he said. Something big. He showed her a section of DNA, filled with locked sequences. The kind found only in engineered life forms, weapons, spies, or royal heirs. But hers was different. It was cleaner, more complex. Like a masterpiece someone wanted to hide. Suddenly, she felt cold. Am I not real? She asked in a quiet voice. Just a lab creature? Joran shook his head quickly. You are real, he said. More real than any monster who tried to erase you. This wasn't your fault. Still, the questions burned inside her. Who did this to her? Why was she left to rot in a market when she held something so rare? That evening, the wind changed. Joran stepped outside and felt it in the air, too still, too quiet. He activated his sensors. Checking the perimeter, one drone was missing, and another had gone silent. He came back inside, his hand on the grip of his old plasma rifle. Get ready, he said to her. We might have visitors. The girl froze, her heart pounding. Are they coming for me? She asked. Maybe, he replied. Or maybe they're just tracking the energy you released. Either way, we're not waiting. They packed supplies in silence. Joran gave her a small device like a pendant. If anything happens to me, run and activate this, he said. It'll guide you to the nearest safe zone. She didn't want to take it. I'm not leaving without you, she said. Joran looked at her. Not as a broken thing, not as a mystery, but as someone he truly cared for. You're stronger than you think, he said. But strength also means knowing when to survive. That night, they stayed in the dark, lights off, weapons ready, but the attack didn't come, not yet. Instead, a ship landed in the far forest, silent, invisible to normal eyes. Inside it, masked figures watched their cabin from a distance. One of them whispered, "She's alive." The next day, Joran opened an old case from under the floor. Inside was a data chip marked with a single word, Aureolus. He hadn't seen it in years, but now, he placed it into his screen and let the ancient file unfold. It showed a Project 1 buried by time and war, a creation plan for a new being. Not a soldier, not a slave, but something greater, a child born from mixed DNA, alien and human, designed to bridge both worlds. The final name on the file was 73C. His breath caught. She wasn't just rare, she was impossible. A living secret thought destroyed long ago. He went to her, still holding the data chip. You're more than a lost girl, he said. You were part of something huge. Someone wanted you gone because you were hope, not danger. She looked down, tears in her eyes. Then why was I left to die? She asked, voice trembling. Joran gently touched her shoulder. Because people fear what they don't control. Later that night, they were sitting near the fireplace. She looked at him and said, I don't want to hide anymore. If they're coming for me, I want to know why. Joran nodded slowly. Then we face it together, he said. Whatever secrets lie under your skin, we'll uncover them. But outside, the masked watchers were already moving, and the girl, who was thrown out as too sick to save, was now the center of a coming storm. The night was quiet, but she couldn't sleep. The stars above the cabin blinked like silent watchers. Inside her chest, her heart beat fast, not from fear, but from something else. A strange feeling she didn't understand yet. She stood near the window, staring at the red trees. Joran was outside, checking the sensors again. She had seen the worry in his eyes all day. He didn't speak much, but his silence said enough. Something was getting closer. That afternoon, a message had arrived, not through the usual network, but on a private, ancient channel Joran hadn't used in years. It was short, cold, and dangerous. We know what she is. Name your price. He didn't show her the full message. He didn't want her to worry. But she had seen part of it when the screen flickered, and her heart broke. Someone wanted to buy her again, not for her body, not for labor, but for what lived inside her. Her blood, her genes, her unknown power. To them, she was no more than a tool, a living weapon dressed in soft skin. That evening, she left the cabin quietly. She didn't run far, just into the trees. She needed to breathe, to be away from the machines, the scans, the truths. She needed space to feel human. But her legs carried her farther than she planned, until she collapsed near a stream. The cool water touched her fingers, and she stared at her reflection. Was she still herself? Or was she becoming something else? Footsteps came through the leaves. She didn't look up. She knew who it was. Joran sat beside her, saying nothing at first. Then, in a soft voice, he asked, "Why did you leave?" She whispered, "Because I saw the message. You said I was free, but they still want to own me. Maybe I'm not a person after all." Joran's jaw clenched. He didn't speak for a moment. Then he said, "You are not for sale. Not to them, not to anyone. But what am I, Joran?" She asked, her voice breaking. "A mistake. A weapon. A science project. If I wasn't useful, would you still have saved me?" Joran turned to her, his eyes full of fire. "I didn't save you because of your blood," he said. "I didn't even know who you were. I saved you because I saw someone who deserved to live." She looked down, hands shaking. "I'm scared," she whispered. "I don't want to be used again." He gently placed a hand over hers. "You're not a weapon," he said. "You're a woman. You're someone who has the right to choose." Tears ran down her cheeks. No one had ever said those words to her before. Not when she was a slave. Not when she was sick. Only now. With this strange man in the middle of nowhere, she felt real. "I don't understand what I feel," she said softly. "When you look at me, I feel warm. When you smile, I want to smile too." Joran's voice lowered, kind and careful. "That feeling has a name," he said. "But it's yours to discover. I'll never force you." She nodded slowly, resting her head against his shoulder. The stars above seemed to shine a little brighter, and for once, the voices in her mind were quiet. The next morning, a ship arrived. Not one from the skies but from the ground, rising from hidden earth. It was a diplomatic vessel, marked with a seal from the alien core worlds. A woman in dark robes stepped out, her face hidden behind a silver mask. "I come to speak with Joran," she said calmly. He met her outside, gun strapped but unused. The girl stayed inside, watching through the window. Something about the visitor felt wrong. "You know what she is," the masked woman said. "She has value more than you can imagine. Give her to us, and you'll be paid well." Joran narrowed his eyes. "She's not a product," he said. "She's not yours to claim." "She's not yours either," the woman replied. "She was created, not born. She belongs to the house of Eltrez." Joran's voice turned sharp. "She belongs to herself." The woman's mask glinted in the sunlight. "Then you've made your choice," she said. "You'll be hunted for it." He didn't flinch. "I've been hunted before." As the ship vanished into the trees, he turned and walked back inside. The girl was waiting, her eyes full of questions. He took her hand and said only one thing. "We'll leave tonight." And in the silence that followed, she understood. She wasn't a tool, a slave, or a mistake anymore. She was something else. Now, she was loved. The forest was quiet as they fled. Joran held the controls of the hover transport tightly. The girl sat beside him, her eyes on the dark path ahead. They didn't speak much. The silence between them was full of unspoken fear and quiet trust. They were no longer safe in the cabin, not after the masked woman came, not after Joran refused to sell her. He had made a choice, and now they were being hunted. The girl looked down at her hands. They glowed again, faint and pulsing, not with pain, but with life. Something inside her was changing, and she could feel it growing stronger. Each day, Joran noticed her shifting in her seat. "You okay?" he asked gently. She nodded, but her voice shook. "There's something inside me," she said. "Something alive." Joran slowed the vehicle and pulled it to the side of a moss-covered hill. He turned to her, eyes steady. "What do you mean inside you?" he asked. She placed his hand on her belly. "It's not just power," she whispered. "It's a heartbeat." He froze, stunned. She looked into his eyes, afraid of what he might say. "I didn't know what it was at first," she said. "But now I do." Joran leaned closer, his hand still resting gently on her stomach. He closed his eyes, listening, and then soft and faint a second heartbeat. He looked at her, searching her face. "Are you saying?" he started. She nodded slowly. "Yes," she whispered. "I'm carrying your child." His mind raced with thoughts, but he didn't pull away. He didn't look angry or afraid. Instead, he placed his forehead against hers, his voice low and steady. "We'll protect this life," he said, no matter what. The girl trembled in relief. She had expected rejection, but instead, she felt held, chosen, real. They continued their journey, deeper into the wilderness. Their destination was a secret station, an old rebel safe zone Joran had used long ago. It was buried in the cliffs, covered by vines and hidden from all satellites. No one would find them there, not easily. The station was quiet and dusty. Joran reactivated the systems. The lights blinked to life. Old machines hummed again. And the girl stood in the center of it all, hand on her stomach, eyes full of wonder. She wasn't just alive, she was creating life. Later that night, as she rested in a small room, Joran studied the readings on her DNA again. Now he saw something more. The child inside her wasn't just a mix of species. It was stable, perfect, and powerful, a hybrid with no genetic flaws. Something never achieved before, not by humans, not by aliens, not even by the labs that made her. She came to him quietly, placing a hand on his back. "You're thinking to heart again," she said with a small smile. He turned, pulling her into a soft embrace. "I'm thinking about the future," he said. "Our future." She leaned into him, breathing in his warmth. "I don't care what the stars say," she whispered. "I only care about here." But the stars didn't care about peace. Far above them, a message had been sent. A bounty large and deadly had been placed on Joran's head, and a warning marked the girl as wanted for royal recovery. The enemies were coming, and they weren't coming to talk. 2 days later, the first drone arrived, sleek, black, and silent. It hovered near the cliffs. Joran spotted it through a camera feed and raised the alarm. "We have to move again," he said. But the girl shook her head. "No more running," she said firmly. "If I keep running, our child will be born in fear. I want to face them." Joran, he looked at her with a new kind of respect. She was no longer just surviving. She was standing. He nodded and opened the weapons vault, old blasters, shields, and battle armor. He handed her a compact energy shield. "Only if you're ready," he said. She took it with steady hands. "I'm ready." When the next wave came, it wasn't just drones. It was a full assault team, mercenaries from 5 systems, each one trained, armed, and promised wealth for her capture. But they weren't expecting her to fight back. She moved like lightning, her skin glowing with power. She didn't fight to kill, but to protect herself, Joran, and the child within her. Joran fought beside her, back to back, old soldier instincts rising again. Together, they pushed the attackers back, until the ground was quiet again. After the battle, the girl knelt in the clearing, breathing hard. Her hands trembled, but not from fear. She placed them gently over her stomach and smiled. "I did it," she whispered. "We did it." Joran came to her, kneeling beside her. "You're not the same girl I found in that market," he said. "You've become something more." She looked at him, eyes glowing softly. "I'm not just carrying a child," she said. "I'm carrying hope." And the heart inside her beat faster, not from fear, but from life. The sky above the cliffs turned golden. Clouds moved slowly, like ships sailing across a calm ocean. But below, inside the hidden rebel base, the air was sharp with tension. The battle had ended, but peace had not yet returned. They had survived, but for how long? Joran stood near the window, his rifle resting beside him. He watched the tree line carefully, scanning for shadows that didn't belong. The girl sat quietly in the medical chamber, her hands resting over her belly. The heartbeat inside her was steady, warm, and alive. She could feel it now, not just inside her body, but inside her soul. She wasn't just carrying a child, she was carrying the future. A message arrived on Joran's private channel. It was a voice he hadn't heard in years. An old friend from the underground, someone he trusted. "You're surrounded," the voice warned. "They're coming in full force this time. You need to run." Joran's jaw tightened. "No," he said quietly. "We're done running." He turned to the girl, who had already stood up. Her back was straight, her eyes steady. "I heard it," she said. "They'll try to take us again, but they'll fail." He handed her a bracelet, small but powerful. "It's a shield. It'll protect you if I'm not there." She took it and placed it around her wrist. "You're always there," she said, smiling. "You'll be there when our child is born." That smile gave him strength, more than any weapon, more than any training. The ground shook minutes later. Enemy transports landed in the distance, black, armored, and fast. A full strike unit from the House of Eltrez. They didn't speak or negotiate. They came with force. Joran and the girl had prepared. They activated traps along the mountain paths, shock fields, smoke barriers, and false heat signatures. But still, the enemy pushed closer. She stood near the command panel, her hand hovering above a strange orb. "I can feel them," she whispered. "Their minds, their fear." Joran looked at her. "Are you sure?" he asked. She nodded, her voice calm. "I'm not just a project," she said. "I was made to connect, to feel, to know, to unify." She closed her eyes, and the orb lit up in her hand. A wave of light shot out across the trees, and for a moment, the enemy froze. The stronger ones fought through it, but others dropped their weapons. Dazed, Joran took the chance, striking hard and fast. He moved like a ghost through the smoke, never missing, never hesitating. He fought for her, for their child, for everything he had once thought lost. Inside the base, the girl pressed her hand to her stomach. "I'm sorry," she whispered to the child inside. "This isn't the world I wanted you to enter, but we'll fix it. We'll make a better one." The door burst open. 2 armored soldiers entered. She raised her hand. Light bursting from her palm, they were thrown back without a sound. She didn't scream, didn't panic. She protected what mattered most. When Joran returned, his face was scratched, his coat burned, but he smiled when he saw her still standing. "They're retreating," he said. "They didn't expect you to fight." She walked into his arms and held him tightly. "Then let them remember us," she said, "not as fugitives, but as protectors." Later, under the stars, they stood outside the base. The firelight flickered beside them, and the night was quiet again. Joran looked at her belly and placed a hand there gently. "What do we name them?" he asked. She thought for a moment, then smiled. "Let's name them after no one," she said. "Let them be the first, a child born not of war but of choice, of healing, of unity." In the distance, the galaxy still burned with conflict. But here, in the quiet space between battles, a miracle had taken root. She had been thrown out, labeled as sick to save, but now she carried something no empire could buy, no army could crush, no law could take. She carried hope, and as Joran held her close, he whispered softly, "We're not just surviving anymore, we're starting something new." The stars above them listened in silence, and somewhere in the sky, far from war and fear, a future waited to be born.